The Elders' last warning was clear, and the repercussions were devastating. The Elders' home system had no name. It had never needed one. Every species in the galaxy simply called it the Center, because that is what it was. The center of power, the center of law, the center of everything that had kept the galaxy in order for longer than any living memory could reach. It was a system of 7 planets orbiting a pale blue star. The planets were smooth and perfect, their surfaces covered in structures of white bone-like material that stretched for thousands of kilometers. No cities, no markets, no parks or rivers or signs of ordinary life. Just endless, silent architecture, built for one purpose: control. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. 300 human ships and 47 allied vessels, hanging in the dark like a swarm of fireflies against the void. Taiho stood on the bridge of the Unyielding and looked at the pale blue star through the main viewport. It was beautiful, in a cold and terrible way, like looking at a knife made of ice. "All ships report ready," Dohan said over the command channel. He was aboard the Resolve, positioned on the fleet's left flank. His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a man who had already made peace with whatever was about to happen. "Echo units powered and standing by," Suho reported from the research vessel Horizon. His voice was less calm. He was a scientist, not a soldier, and the sight of 300 warships preparing for battle was not something his training had prepared him for. But his hands were steady on the console, and the 12 Echo devices hummed with power. Taiho opened a fleet-wide channel. He did not give a speech. He did not need to. "We are here," he said. "You know why. Do your jobs, protect each other, and bring everyone home." The fleet moved forward. The Elders responded within minutes. The pale blue star flickered, and from the surfaces of the 7 planets, massive structures began to rise. Towers of white bone, reaching into space, each one crackling with the same cold energy that had destroyed 3 human worlds. The weapon platforms, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. The sky filled with white light as the first volley fired. Beams of pure disconnection energy lanced across space, aimed at the human fleet. "Echo units, engage!" Suho shouted. The 12 ships carrying the Echo devices activated simultaneously. A wave of counter-frequency energy pulsed outward from the fleet, invisible but powerful, meeting the Elders' beams head-on. The beams stopped. They did not explode or shatter. They simply ceased to exist, cancelled out by the opposing frequency like a sound swallowed by silence. For the first time in galactic history, the Elders' weapon failed. The effect rippled through the system. On the 7 planets, the weapon towers fired again and again. Each time, the Echo devices neutralized the attack. Each time, the white light died before it could touch a single human ship. Taiho watched the readings on his console. His heart was pounding, but his face showed nothing. "They are increasing power," Yuna said from beside him. She was monitoring the enemy transmissions, reading the patterns. "They do not understand why it is not working. They have never encountered resistance to their weapon before." "They will adjust," Taiho said. "We need to move fast." He gave the order, and the fleet split into 3 groups. The first group, led by Dohan, engaged the weapon platforms directly, drawing fire and keeping the Elders focused on the fleet. The second group moved to disable the defense systems on the nearest planets. The third group, carrying the Echo devices, pushed toward the central planet, the largest, the one where the summit of Alir orbited in the shadow of the pale star. The battle was not clean. It was not elegant. Human ships took damage. Some were destroyed. The Elders had other weapons beyond the frequency beams: conventional energy blasts, gravity distortion fields, swarms of automated drones that attacked in waves. The Allied ships fought alongside the humans, their old weapons firing bravely into the white towers. Dohan's carrier took a direct hit from a gravity distortion pulse. The Resolve shuddered and listed to one side, losing power to its port engines. Dohan grabbed the railing on his bridge and stayed on his feet. "Damage report," he said. "Port engines down. Hull breach on decks 7 through 9. Shields at 40%. "Keep firing," Dohan said. "We hold this line." The Resolve kept fighting. On the horizon, Suho worked frantically at his console. He had seen something in the data. The Elders were not just firing their weapon. They were channeling it through a central source, a single massive generator on the central planet. If he could reverse the echo signal and push it back through that channel, it would overload the generator. It would not just stop the weapon, it would destroy it. "Teho," Suho said over the command channel, "I need the fleet to get me within range of the central planet. Close range. Very close." "How close?" "Close enough to see the buildings." Teho did not hesitate. "Dohan, clear a path. All ships, cover the horizon." The fleet surged forward. Ships moved into formation around the horizon, shielding it with their own bodies. Weapons blazed, hulls cracked. 2 Allied ships exploded in silence, their crews lost in an instant. But the path opened, and the horizon pushed through. Suho saw the central planet fill his viewport. White structures stretched across its surface like the ribs of some enormous beast. At the center, a tower taller than anything he had ever seen pulsed with cold blue light. The generator. "In range," he said. His fingers hovered over the activation switch. "Reversing echo signal, amplifying to maximum." He pressed the switch. The echo device screamed, not with sound, but with energy. A wave of reversed frequency shot from the horizon and struck the central tower like a spear of invisible fire. The tower absorbed it for 1 second. 3. Then it cracked. The cracks spread down the tower like lightning running through ice. The blue light flickered, stuttered, and then erupted outward in a massive pulse. The weapon platforms across all 7 planets went dark simultaneously. The beams stopped. The drones fell silent. The gravity fields collapsed, and the tower shattered. It fell slowly, in the low gravity, breaking apart into millions of white fragments that drifted across the planet's surface like snow. And as it fell, every screen on every human ship displayed the same reading. Weapon system neutralized. Threat eliminated. The bridge of the unyielding was silent. Then Yuna let out a breath she had been holding for what felt like years. "It is over," she said. Teho shook his head. Not yet. He guided the unyielding to the summit of Alir. The ancient station still floated above the central planet, untouched by the battle. Its dark metal walls reflected nothing. Teho, Yuna, Dohan, and Suho walked into the great chamber together. The floating platforms were empty. The alien observers had fled. Only the 3 elders remained, sitting on their raised thrones, their blue eyes dim and flickering. They looked smaller now, older, like statues left in the rain too long. The first elder spoke. Its voice was weak. "You have destroyed our weapon. You have broken our authority. The galaxy will fall into chaos without our guidance." Yuna stepped forward. She stood where she had stood months ago, when she had been called here like a servant, told to obey, told to accept her place. She was not a servant anymore. "The galaxy was already in chaos," she said. "You just made sure no one was allowed to say it out loud." The elders said nothing. Yuna looked at Teho. He nodded. She turned back to the elders, and to the recording devices that were broadcasting this moment to every corner of the galaxy. Every species, every world, every being that had ever lived under the elder's shadow. She spoke one sentence. Her voice was clear and steady, and carried no anger, only truth. "We warned you not to warn us." The elders' eyes dimmed, their thrones crumbled, and in the silence that followed, The galaxy took its first free breath in 10,000 years. Outside the station, the fleet hung in the light of the pale blue star, battered, scarred, wounded, but alive. Human ships and allied ships, side by side, carrying the weight of a new galaxy on their shoulders. Tejo stood at the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the empty space where Korath 7 had been, Mirai's last transmission was still bouncing between relay stations, still carrying the data that had saved them all. He closed his eyes and whispered a single word into the silence. Thank you. The stars burned on. The galaxy was free. And humanity, as always, kept reaching. The Elder's last warning was clear, and the repercussions were devastating. The data Mirai sent before she died filled 17,000 pages when printed. Raw numbers, wave frequencies, magnetic field interactions, energy decay curves, and dozens of readings that no human scientist had ever seen before. It was messy. It was incomplete. Some of it was corrupted by the interference of the weapon itself. But it was enough. It was more than enough. Suho received the data 12 hours after the attack. He was a physicist, 36 years old, working at the Sejong Research Institute on Mars. He was not famous. He had never published anything that made headlines. He was the kind of scientist who worked quietly in the background, solving problems that other people did not even know existed. He had messy hair, tired eyes, and a habit of talking to himself when he was deep in thought. When the data arrived on his screen, he stopped everything. He read through it once, then twice, then a third time. Then he pushed his chair back, stared at the ceiling, and whispered a single word. Oh. He saw it. In the noise, in the mess, in the corrupted signals and broken readings, he saw the pattern. The Elder's weapon was not what anyone expected. It was not a beam. It was not an explosion. It was a frequency, a vibration tuned to a very specific harmonic that could unravel the bonds between atoms. It did not destroy matter. It disconnected it. It told every atom in an object that it no longer belonged to the atoms next to it, and everything simply fell apart at the most basic level. It was elegant, it was terrifying, and it had a flaw. Every frequency had a counterfrequency. Every wave could be cancelled by another wave. This was basic physics, the kind of thing taught in first-year classes. The Elders had built the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, and it was still subject to the same rules as a sound wave in a bathtub. Suho began working. He did not sleep for 4 days. He was not alone. Across human space, hundreds of scientists worked on the same data. But Suho was the first to crack it. On the morning of the 5th day, he sent a single message to Admiral Jisoo. I have the counterfrequency. I can build a device that neutralizes the weapon, and if we reverse the polarity and increase the amplitude, we can turn it back on them. Jisoo read the message, closed her eyes for 3 seconds, and then opened them. Build it, she replied. The next 30 days were the busiest in human history. Every factory, every shipyard, every research lab worked around the clock. The device Suho designed was called the Echo, a generator that could produce the counterfrequency at massive scale. Each unit was the size of a building, and it required more power than a small city to operate. But humanity built them anyway. 12 units, installed on 12 warships, ready in 29 days. While the scientists worked, the military prepared. Dohan spent every waking hour drilling the fleet. He ran simulations. He studied the layout of Elder space from every piece of intelligence humanity had ever gathered. He planned approach routes, attack formations, and fallback positions. He also did something no one expected. He reached out to other species. The message was simple and direct. He sent it to every alien government, every council member, every species that had ever sat on those floating platforms in the summit chamber, and stayed silent while the elders spoke. The elders destroyed 3 of our worlds, the message said. 2.5 billion of our people are dead. We are going to war. We are not asking for your help. We are telling you what is about to happen. If you want to stand with us, stand with us. If you do not, stay out of our way. No one responded at first. The galaxy was silent. Then, on the 15th day, a small fleet of ships appeared at the edge of human space. They belonged to the Doran, a species of quiet, stone-skinned people who had obeyed the elders for 12,000 years. Their ships were old and battered. Their weapons were outdated. But they came. The Doran commander sent a single message. We remember what it was like to be free. We have not been free in a long time. 3 days later, another fleet arrived. Then another. Then another. Small groups, mostly. Outcasts and rebels from species that had been crushed under the elders' rule for centuries. They were not a mighty army. They were broken pieces of civilizations that had almost forgotten what defiance felt like. And that mattered. On the 30th day, everything was ready. Tejo stood on the bridge of the flagship unyielding. He had not slept well in weeks. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the white sky over Korath 7. He saw Mireille's face, though he had never met her. He had read her file. 28 years old, brilliant engineer, loved her work, loved her world, died sending a message that might save everyone else. He owed her. They all owed her. The fleet assembled at the edge of the Valen corridor. 300 human warships, 47 allied vessels, 12 ships carrying the echo devices. It was the largest fleet humanity had ever put together. Yuna was there too, aboard the Unyielding. She had refused to stay behind. I was there when they gave the warning, she told Tejo. I will be there when we give our answer. Tejo did not argue. Admiral Jisu's voice came through the fleet-wide channel. She spoke from Earth, from the same office where she had made every decision that led to this moment. You know what they did, she said. You know what they took from us. I will not give you a long speech. I will not tell you that what we are about to do is easy or safe. It is not. But I will tell you this. She paused. The entire fleet listened. Those worlds they erased, those people they killed, they are watching us right now. Every parent, every child, every friend we lost, they are watching, and they are asking us one question. Her voice hardened. Are you going to let them get away with it? The channel was silent for 1 second. Then every ship in the fleet responded. Not with words, with action. Engines fired, weapons charged, navigation systems locked onto the coordinates of Elder space. Tejo looked at Yuna. She looked back at him. And for the first time since the summit, she smiled. It was the smile of someone who had been holding something back for a very long time, and was finally ready to let it go. Take us in, Tejo said. The fleet surged forward, crossing the Valen corridor, moving into forbidden space, heading straight for the heart of the Elder's domain. No diplomacy, no hesitation. Just 300 ships carrying the grief of billions and the fury of a species that had been pushed too far. The stars blurred as the fleet jumped to faster than light speed, and the darkness of space swallowed them whole. They were coming. The Elder's last warning was clear, and the repercussions were devastating. The 90 days ended on a Tuesday. Mireille remembered this because she had been counting. Everyone on Korath 7 had been counting. They marked the days on walls, on tablets, on scraps of metal pinned to workshop boards. Not because they were afraid, because they wanted to know. They wanted to see if the Elders were bluffing. They were not bluffing. The first sign came at dawn. The sky above Korath 7 was usually a deep, burning red, painted by the light of the system's twin suns. But that morning, the sky turned white. Not bright white like sunlight. A cold, dead white, like the color had been drained from the world. Mireille was in her workshop when it happened. She looked up from her console and saw the change through the window. Her stomach dropped. She had studied energy fields her entire adult life. She knew what a massive energy displacement looked like. And this was the biggest she had ever seen. She grabbed her communicator. Colony Control, this is Mireille at Research Station 7. I am reading a massive energy buildup in the upper atmosphere. Source unknown. Magnitude is off my charts. The response came back immediately, and the voice on the other end was shaking. We see it too. Every sensor on the planet just went red. Then the sound came. It was not a sound anyone could describe properly afterward. It was low and deep, like the entire planet was groaning. The ground shook. The walls of the workshop cracked. Tools fell from shelves. Mireille grabbed the edge of her workbench and held on. Through the window, she saw it. A beam of light, impossibly wide, came down from the white sky and touched the horizon. It was not fire. It was not lightning. Something that moved like a living thing, spreading across the surface of the world in a slow, terrible wave. Everything it touched disappeared. Not burned, not broken. Disappeared. The ground, the buildings, the trees, the air itself, gone. Replaced by nothing. Just empty, silent space where a world had been. The wave moved fast. In seconds, it swallowed the colony's main settlement, 3 kilometers to the south. Mireille watched it happen on her screens. 2,000 people lived in that settlement. Families, children, friends she had eaten dinner with the night before. Gone. She did not scream. She did not cry. There was no time. She turned to her console and began working. Her hands moved faster than they had ever moved in her life. She pulled up every sensor, every scanner, every piece of equipment she had. The energy wave was still spreading, and it would reach her station in minutes. Maybe less. But in those minutes, she could do something. She could record. Her fingers flew across the keys. She captured the wave's frequency, its energy signature, its pattern of expansion. She measured its speed, its depth, its interaction with the planet's magnetic field. She recorded everything her instruments could detect, pouring data into a compressed file that grew larger with every second. The ground shook again, harder this time. A crack split the floor of her workshop, and dust rained from the ceiling. Through the window, she could see the wave now. A wall of white nothingness, eating the world alive, rolling toward her like the tide. She had maybe 90 seconds. She opened a transmission channel. Emergency broadcast. Maximum power. Every frequency she could reach. This is Mireille, Research Station 7, Korath 7. I am transmitting the energy signature of the weapon being used against us. Frequency data, wave patterns, and magnetic interaction logs are all included. If anyone receives this, use it. Find a way to stop it. She hit send. The file launched into space at the speed of light, bouncing off relay satellites and communication buoys, racing outward toward any ship or station that could hear it. The wave reached her workshop 30 seconds later. The walls turned white. The air turned white. The last thing Mireille saw was her console screen, still glowing, still showing the transmission status. Sent, received, confirmed. Then there was nothing. Korath 7 died in 7 minutes. A whole world, wiped clean, turned into a blank spot on the galactic map. And it was not alone. 2 other human colonies beyond the corridor suffered the same fate within the same hour. Hana 5 and Dongwon Station, both struck by the same cold white light, both erased. 2,600,000,000 people. Gone. The news reached Earth like a blade through the heart. Every screen, every channel, every communicator carried the same message. 3 colonies destroyed. No survivors, no wreckage, no bodies to bury. Just empty space where human lives had been. Admiral Jisoo received the news in her office. She was standing at the window when Dohan's transmission came through. She listened without moving, without blinking, without breathing. When the transmission ended, she stood in silence for a long time. Then she sat down at her desk, opened a channel to Fleet Command, and began giving orders. Her voice was flat and cold, like iron left in the snow. All fleet assets are to move to war footing immediately. Every ship we have, every weapon, every soldier. I want the entire Navy mobilized within 48 hours. The officer on the other end of the line hesitated. Admiral, the Council has not yet authorized. The Council can authorize it when they arrive, Jisoo said. By then, I expect every ship to be ready. She closed the channel and opened another. This one reached Dohan on the Resolve. Commander. Dohan's face appeared on screen. His eyes were red. His jaw was tight. He had known people on Korath 7. Everyone had known people on Korath 7. I received Mirai's transmission, he said. The energy signature data. It came through clean. Jisoo felt something crack inside her chest. A young engineer on a doomed world, with seconds to live, had chosen to spend those seconds saving everyone else. That was humanity. That was what the Elders had tried to erase. Send the data to every research facility we have, Jisoo said. Top priority. I want our best minds working on it within the hour. Already done, Dohan said. Jisoo nodded. Good. She leaned back and looked at the ceiling. 3 worlds, billions of lives. The Elders had made their point. They had shown the galaxy what happens when you disobey. But they had also made a mistake. They had assumed that destruction would break humanity, that grief would turn to fear, that the sight of 3 dead worlds would send humans crawling back behind the red line, trembling and obedient. They did not understand. Humans did not break under grief. They burned. They sharpened. They turned their pain into purpose and their tears into steel. The Elders had delivered a wound, and humanity was about to return it 1,000-fold. Across the galaxy, on every human world, in every ship and station and outpost, a light burned through the night. No one slept. No one rested. Scientists opened Mirai's data and began tearing it apart. Engineers studied the energy signature. Fleet commanders drew up battle plans. Other species, the ones who had always obeyed, looked at humanity and waited. Some of them felt pity. Some felt fear. And a few of them, very quietly, felt something they had not felt in 1,000 years. The Elders' last warning was clear, and the repercussions were devastating. The message from the summit reached Earth in 6 hours. It was encrypted, compressed, and stamped with the highest priority marker the diplomatic corps had ever used. By the time it reached the desk of Admiral Jisoo, half the military council had already read it. Jisoo sat in her office at Fleet Command, a wide room on the 42nd floor of the Pacific Tower. The walls were lined with screens, showing ship movements, colony reports, and supply chain data. She had a cup of cold tea on her desk that she had forgotten about 3 hours ago. She was 54 years old, with short gray hair and sharp features that made her look like she was always thinking, which she was. She read the message twice. Then she leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. Pull back, she whispered to herself. Pull back behind the corridor. 1 standard cycle. She opened her eyes and looked at the map on the wall. The blue dots beyond the red line. The colonies, the research stations, the people. 47,000 human beings lived beyond the Valen corridor. Families, scientists, engineers, children who had been born on those worlds and had never seen Earth. And the Elders wanted them removed, erased, packed up and pushed back behind the line like they had never existed. Jisoo pressed a button on her desk. "Get me Commander Dohan." 10 minutes later, Dohan's face appeared on her screen. He was aboard the carrier Resolve, stationed near the outer edge of the corridor. He was younger than Jisoo by almost 15 years, with a square jaw and calm, steady eyes. He had the kind of face that made soldiers trust him without question. "Admiral," he said, "you have read the summit report?" "I have. What do you think?" He was not the kind of man who spoke before thinking. "I think the elders have been telling species what to do for a very long time, and I think they are not used to hearing the word no." Jisoo almost smiled. "I agree." She stood up and walked to the window. The Pacific Ocean stretched out below, blue and endless. Somewhere out there, beyond the atmosphere, beyond the solar system, beyond the stars, her people were waiting for orders. "We are not pulling back," she said. Dohan did not look surprised. "Understood. I want every colony beyond the corridor fortified. Shields, weapons, early warning systems. I want supply lines doubled. I want civilian transports ready in case we need to evacuate, but I do not want anyone evacuating yet. We hold our ground." "The elders gave us one cycle," Dohan said. "That is roughly 90 Earth days. Then we have 90 days to get ready. I will begin immediately." The screen went dark, and Jisoo stood alone in her office. She knew what she was doing. She knew the risk. Every other species in the galaxy had obeyed the elders. Every single one. Some had obeyed out of respect. Some had obeyed out of fear. But all of them had bent the knee. She picked up her cold tea and took a sip. It tasted bitter. Good. She needed bitter right now. Over the next 3 weeks, the human frontier changed. Cargo ships moved day and night, carrying shield generators, weapon platforms, and construction materials to every colony beyond the corridor. Engineers worked in shifts, building defense grids and reinforcing structures. On the colony world of Daho 3, a team of workers installed a planetary shield in just 11 days, a job that should have taken 2 months. Dohan oversaw everything from the Resolve. He moved from system to system, checking defenses, reviewing plans, and speaking to colony leaders. He told them the truth. He told them the elders had given an ultimatum. He told them Earth had refused. Most of them were afraid. Some of them were angry. A few of them cried. But not one of them asked to leave. On the colony of Korath 7, a young engineer named Mireille watched the supply ships arrive from her workshop window. She was 28 years old, small and quiet, with clever hands and a mind that never stopped working. She had come to Korath 7 4 years ago to study the planet's unusual energy fields, and she had fallen in love with the place. The red soil, the wide open skies, the strange humming sound the mountains made at night. She did not want to leave. She did not want to be told that her home, the home she had built with her own hands, was not hers to keep. She turned back to her workbench and continued her research. If trouble was coming, she wanted to be ready. Back on Earth, Jisoo held a meeting with the full military council. 12 admirals, 6 generals, and 20 senior advisors sat around a long table in a room with no windows. The room was soundproof and shielded against every kind of surveillance known to humanity. Jisoo stood at the head of the table. "The elders expect obedience," she said. "They have received it from every species they have ever encountered. They believe the galaxy operates on fear. They believe that a warning, delivered from a high enough place, is the same as a command." She paused and looked at each face around the table. "They are wrong." A murmur passed through the room. Some of the faces were worried, some were excited. All of them were listening. "We will not attack the elders," Jisoo continued. "We will not provoke them, but we will not retreat. If they want our colonies, they will have to come and take them. And if they come, they will learn something that no species in this galaxy has ever taught them." She placed both hands on the table and leaned forward. They will learn what happens when you push humanity into a corner. The room was silent for a long moment. Then, one by one, every person at the table nodded. The decision was made. Word spread quickly. Across the colonies, across the fleet, across every human world in the galaxy, the message was the same. We stay. We hold. We do not kneel. On the resolve, Dohan received the official orders and forwarded them to every ship under his command. He stood on the bridge and looked out at the stars. Somewhere beyond those stars, the elders sat on their ancient thrones and waited for humanity to crawl back behind the red line. They would be waiting for a long time. The 90 days began to count down, and humanity did not flinch. They built. They prepared. They stood on their worlds and looked up at the sky with steady eyes. The elders had given their last warning, and humanity had given its answer. The elders' last warning was clear, and the repercussions were devastating. The station floated above a dying star. It was old, older than any human could imagine. Its walls were made of a dark metal that did not reflect light, and its corridors stretched in every direction like the veins of some massive sleeping creature. This was the summit of Alir, the place where the Galactic Elders held their court. No species in the known galaxy had ever refused an invitation to appear before them, and no species had ever left the summit without obeying. Captain Tejo stood near the entrance of the great chamber, his hands folded behind his back. He was a tall man, lean and sharp-featured, with dark eyes that gave away nothing. He had spent 20 years in the human fleet. He had fought pirates near the Rogan Belt, survived a reactor breach on the carrier Indomitable, and once pulled 3 wounded soldiers from a burning dropship with his bare hands. But standing here, in this ancient place, even he felt small. Beside him stood Yuna. She was not a soldier. She was a diplomat, trained in words and silence, in knowing when to speak and when to wait. Her black hair was pulled back neatly, and her expression was calm. But Tejo had known her long enough to see the tension in her jaw, the slight tightening of her fingers around the data tablet she carried. They had been called here, not invited, called. The chamber opened before them, like the mouth of a cave. It was round, impossibly wide, and the ceiling disappeared into darkness above. Floating platforms lined the edges, each one holding a figure from a different species. Some were tall and thin, with skin like polished stone. Others were short and wide, their bodies covered in thick fur or shining scales. A few had no solid form at all, just shapes of light that shifted and flickered like candle flames. At the center of the chamber, raised above everything else, sat the 3 elders. No one knew what species they were. No one knew how old they were. They had been here before the first human drew breath, before the first star was named. They looked like statues carved from white bone, their faces smooth and featureless, except for 2 deep-set eyes that glowed faintly blue. They did not move. They did not breathe. But when they spoke, the entire chamber vibrated with the weight of their voice. The first elder spoke. "Humanity," it said. The word echoed through the chamber like a slow wave. "You have been given freedom. You have been given territory. You have been given more patience than any species in the history of this council." Tejo did not blink. Yuna kept her eyes forward. The second elder continued, "And yet, you push, you expand. You cross boundaries that were set not out of cruelty, but out of wisdom. The Valen corridor was your limit. It was generous. It gave your kind more room than most species receive in 10,000 years. We are aware of the boundary," Yuna said. Her voice was steady, clear, and respectful. She had practiced this tone for years. "And we are grateful for the space we have been given." "Grateful," the third elder repeated. and the word came out like the sound of cracking ice. If you are grateful, your ships would not be drifting beyond the corridor. If you are grateful, your colonies would not be sprouting on worlds that belong to no one, in regions that were sealed for reasons your kind cannot begin to understand. Tejo felt his chest tighten, but he said nothing. This was Yuna's arena. Yuna stepped forward slightly. The colonies beyond the corridor are small. They are research stations mostly. Our people are curious. It is in our nature to explore. We mean no disrespect. Curiosity, the first elder said, is the excuse every doomed species gives before it walks into the fire. The chamber was silent. Every alien on every platform watched. Some of them had seen this before. Other species had stood where the humans stood now. Other species had argued, begged, or bargained. And in the end, every single one of them had obeyed. The first elder raised one long, pale hand. The air in the chamber shifted, and a projection appeared in the center of the room. It showed a map of the galaxy, vast and glowing, with thousands of tiny lights marking colonies, stations, and trade routes. A thick red line cut across one section of the map, the Valen Corridor. Beyond the red lines, small blue dots blinked. Human colonies, human ships, human presence in a region where humanity had been told, very clearly, never to go. You will withdraw, the first elder said. Every ship, every colony, every probe, and satellite, and scanner. You will pull back behind the corridor within one standard cycle. This is not a request. Tejo felt something shift inside him. It was not fear. It was something deeper, something older. A feeling that every human carried somewhere in their bones, passed down from ancestors who had been told to stay in their place, to stop reaching, to stop dreaming, to accept the walls around them, and be thankful for the cage. He looked at Yuna. She looked at him, and in that single glance, they both understood. We will bring your words to our leaders, Yuna said carefully. We will present your terms. There are no terms, the second elder said. There is only obedience or consequence. Yuna nodded slowly. Then we will present your words. The elder said nothing more. The audience was over. Tejo and Yuna walked out of the chamber together, their footsteps echoing on the dark metal floor. Neither of them spoke until they were back aboard their shuttle, sealed inside and away from alien ears. Tejo sat down and let out a long breath. They think we are afraid. Yuna placed her data tablet on the console and stared at it. They think we are like the others, are we? She looked at him. There was fire in her eyes now, the kind she never showed in front of strangers. We have never been like the others, Tejo. That is why they are afraid of us. The shuttle pulled away from the summit station and turned toward the distant light of Sol. Behind them, the dying star continued to burn, and the ancient station hung in its glow like a monument to a galaxy that had always demanded silence. Humanity had heard the warning, but humanity had never been very good at listening.